around our Wednesday broadcast of CNN 10, and we're glad you're watching. I'm Carl Azuz at the CNN Center in Atlanta. First story involves oceans, arguments over territory, and disputed islands. The Senkaku Islands are in the East China Sea. China calls them the Diaoyu Islands. China and Japan have claimed and argued over them for decades, and China recently sailed 3 of its Coast Guard ships near the islands. The country did this dozens of times last year, and Japan, which provided these photographs, says the Chinese ships sailed into Japanese territory. Tensions between these two countries concern the U.S. because America is an ally of Japan. The Trump administration says it's committed to defending Japan and its disputed islands, and that the U.S. would be against any country that tries to disrupt Japanese control of the Senkaku Islands. So officials on both sides of the Pacific are watching to see if China tries to provoke a reaction from Japan and the U.S. by sailing here, and what that reaction might be. We've reported on island disputes in this region before. They've been focused on the ongoing international disagreements over territory in the South China Sea.
This is the South China Sea, and these may not look like much, but these small, sparsely populated islands and reefs are at the center of a heated international dispute over land and water rights involving China, the United States, and much of Southeast Asia. Nearly a third of the world's trade passes through here on ships, and valuable gas and oil deposits are believed to lie below these waters. Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan all have competing claims to territory, but China is the most ambitious and the most aggressive. As you can see, China claims almost all of the sea, citing a historic boundary it calls the 9-dash line. And over here, in a chain of islands called the Spratlys, China, and to some extent Vietnam, are rapidly building artificial islands, installing infrastructure, all to justify their territorial claims. Now let's zoom in all the way in on a reef here known as Fiery Cross. Satellite photos from the Asia Maritime Transparency Institute reveal just how much China has transformed this reef into a fully fledged island, reclaiming over 2 million square meters, adding lighthouses, even an airstrip. And just a few steps away, zoom into a different story. Sand Cay Island, controlled by Vietnam. The AMTI says Vietnam expanded the island here by more than 50%, adding defensive positions, gun emplacements, and trenches. And less than 12 kilometers from here, Taiwan controls Taiping Island. It's little more than a runway with a medical clinic, but it helps justify Taiwan's claim to the region. The dispute also spills out into the seas themselves. Anyone crossing these waters might run into Chinese military ships on drills, U.S. Navy boats conducting freedom of navigation operations, or fishermen from Vietnam, China, or the Philippines. A lot of traffic and tension that has raised fears that this contested body of water could become a flashpoint between competing nations.
10-second trivia. When was the U.S. Constitution ratified? Was it in 1775, 1776, 1783, or 1788? When New Hampshire became the 9th state to ratify the Constitution in 1788, the historic document became the law of the land. But it wasn't until yesterday, the first time since 1788, that the Constitution's Article 1, Section 3, Clause 4 played out for a president's cabinet nominee. The clause says that the Vice President of the United States shall be President of the Senate, but shall have no vote unless they be equally divided, they meaning senators. When it came time for them to vote on Betsy DeVos, President Donald Trump's nominee for Education Secretary, 50 senators voted to confirm her, 50 voted against confirming her. That included 2 Republicans who hold a 2-seat majority in the Senate. So the tie-breaking vote was cast by U.S. Vice President Mike Pence.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 50. The Senate being equally divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative and the nomination is confirmed.
Why was the Senate divided? When he nominated DeVos, President Trump called her a brilliant education advocate whose leadership would help the government reform the education system and give better education and school choice to families. DeVos favors charter schools and voucher programs, and some teachers' unions say those plans take money away from public schools that need it. And DeVos's critics say she's pushed for education programs that don't work. With Vice President Pence's tie-breaking vote, Betsy DeVos becomes the 11th U.S. Education Secretary responsible for advising the President on America's education policies, activities, and programs. Speaking about virtual reality technology 3 years ago, the head of Facebook said, quote, "We believe this kind of immersive, augmented reality will become a part of daily life for billions of people." But since then, he's changed his tune a bit, and there are concerns that this kind of tech could go the way of 3D TV. Why?
Too high.
Tech firms are trying to hit the bullseye in the challenging world of virtual reality. At the New York offices of Framestore VR Studios, artists are hard at work crafting new VR experiences during an uncertain time for the industry. Companies continue to sink billions into development, but headset sales came in way below estimates last year.
It's like I'm on the board with her, right?
Some say the experience just doesn't live up to the hype.
For a good experience, it's still pretty expensive. Might not be all that comfortable to wear this thing. Sometimes it doesn't feel that great if you're a person who tends to get motion sickness.
First live demo in VR.
Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, who recently hired a new head of his Oculus VR unit, says, quote, "I don't think that good virtual reality is fully there yet. It's going to take 5 or 10 more years of development." Framestore is more than aware of the challenges, but it says VR's unique ability to transport users will ultimately win over the public.
For the first time, in a sense, you are the camera. It can create empathy in your understanding of what it's like to be inside the scene. We're developing projects which will help that empathy, to put people in someone else's shoes.
The question is, will people feel comfortable wearing these headsets, cutting off the real world, and choosing virtual reality over actual experiences?
Boosters say deep down, VR is a generational play.
Anybody who's really over 30 sees this technology as evil, and that ultimately we're just going to become more of a secluded type of a society. If you talk to people who are under 20 years old, they're really excited about this. The younger people are slowly going to take over, and so I think it's a function of time before we get more comfortable as a society with VR.
That looks scary.
But don't give up on the adults just yet. At a recent gathering of European VR startups in New York City, those that did take the plunge were quick converts.
It was pretty freaky. I mean, I really did feel like I was immersed in another world.
It was a glimpse into the future.
It will change the way we not only learn, but also how we enjoy entertainment.
How do I go up?
As more give VR a go, the virtual world is slowly becoming reality. Maggie Lake, CNN Money, New York.
Well, the U.S. football season is over, but you still might get a kick out of this. Adam Vinatieri is the kicker for the Indianapolis Colts. He has 4 Super Bowl titles, the NFL record for most consecutive field goals, that's 43, and now he's got the Guinness World Record for most field goals made in a minute. He nailed 28 of them from 17 yards out. That won a donation of $15,000 to a charity that helps military veterans and their spouses. So he can both walk upright and split the uprights, and he was set upright with a pro placeholder holding the ball upright in place for the pro place kicker, allowing him to set records all over the place and get a leg up on the competition. #FieldGoals. We hope to see you again tomorrow for more CNN 10.